Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, morning, evening, depending on where you are connecting from. My name is Gibson Nascimento. I am the head of EMEA, and I have the pleasure today to welcome you to another jam session. As as you as you know, we've been organizing these nice sessions where we always bring a nice honored guest to speak about a topic related to APIs. So if you want to know more about these sessions, or if you can't stay to the end, go to our LinkedIn page. You'll find more information there. Previous sessions about this session, of course, the next ones as well. Today, as always, I have here with me David Roldán and our guest Jason. So I'll allow you to introduce yourselves, please. David.
Hi, happy to be here once again. My name is David Roldán. I'm Senior Solutions Architect at Sensedia. Let's go.
Jason, thanks a
Hi,
lot
everyone.
for
Thanks for
joining us
joining
today.
us today. Yep, thank you for joining us. My name is Jason Cumberland. I'm one of the co-founders of a company called HyperCurrent, and we focus specifically on helping enterprises monetize APIs. So I'm very excited about the topic today.
Yeah, and that brings us to the topic of the day, right? API monetization. We've been talking a lot about it. We do have plenty of conversations with customers on how do I make some money with my APIs, right? So nothing like having someone that is an expert in this area. And to kick off, I would like to ask you, Jason, the first question. So what are the common drivers to lead API monetization? And what are the common business models that we normally apply to monetize APIs?
Sure. Good question. So, we talk with a lot of customers every week who are trying to get started on this journey. And the first thing I will say, just generally, is that the number of companies monetizing APIs is rapidly increasing. And I talked to a sales rep at one of our partner companies just last week, and it said, 2 years ago, we would get asked about monetizing APIs on maybe a third of our RFPs, and then 1 out of 10 of those would actually go forward and do it. And they said at this point, it's nearly every gateway conversation is being asked about monetization, and about half of the companies move forward with implementing a monetization solution. So if you're here and it's on your mind, you have lots of company in the industry. I'll first start by saying the industries that we see where it's happening the most is healthcare and financial services, and that doesn't mean it's not happening in other places. But if you're in one of those industries and considering it, definitely most of your competition is as well. But back to the specific question, the drivers that lead to API monetization. If we boil down all of the initial conversations we have into two groupings, it is either you are looking to disrupt your competition or you are being disrupted by your competition. And I'll give examples of each to help frame those titles. In the case of being the disruptor, it's usually that you're looking across your product portfolio and realizing that there's a way for you to unbundle some of your services and create an API only offering to address a specific segment of the market. And a recent example is we worked with a healthcare company who for a long time had sold a data analysis product to its customers, looking at healthcare data from providers and giving insights back and saying, if you did this or released this offering, you could increase your revenue. And historically, they'd sold six-figure contracts, and they saw an opportunity to unbundle a part of that offer and address a new segment of the market with an API-only offering that was lower cost, but built them a funnel for new customers that would come in at the lower cost service who eventually could be upgraded to the high cost service. So that's an example of kind of disrupting yourself, unbundling your services to find new revenue streams. The other example, which is as common or maybe even more common, is when you're being disrupted. This is happening the most in financial services, where we're seeing fintechs around the world that are coming up and disrupting the traditional business of the banks. And I know you've talked about that in past jam sessions. And in one example, working with a large global bank, where a large portion of their business is in third world countries where the population is largely unbanked. And in those cases, there are new mobile providers that are doing banking on a phone, e-wallet services, which is largely limiting the need for traditional banks and is disrupting a lot of the bank's revenue streams. So in this case, the bank saw an opportunity to release an API offering to the financial services startups that were eroding their business to become the bank of choice for the companies that were disrupting them. Because ultimately, even in those cases, the disruptors need a place to store the money that they're taking in. And by having an API specific offering that they could offer to those fintechs, they still found a way to extract revenue from a situation where otherwise they were being completely avoided in that transaction. So those are two common examples. There are a couple of others, but those are the main ones. Gibson, anyone want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I would like to. So when it comes to the API monetization, you touched on something very interesting. Uh, so the creation of products, in fact, right?
Yep.
So being able to find out what kind of products you either can unbundle or even bundle. So you have a combination of different services that you can bundle together and create an API product. So that's a very interesting point. And I was talking to some guys yesterday, actually presenting to a company, talking specifically about the creation of API products, or
Mm-hmm.
API, the concept of API as a product. Yeah, and on the specifically on the business models, sometimes what I see as well, it's uh, some companies have a difficulty to find out exactly how they're going to monetize their APIs, because they're only thinking about the specific dollar amount. So this API call will make me X
Yep.
amount of dollars per month, but sometimes they don't see other models like, can you create your APIs to expose to partnership ecosystem where indirectly you bring more end consumers consuming your API. So different model to monetize your APIs as well. And then you can measure that as well, right? So you can identify how many orders were created by partner channels, for example. And then you can put a dollar amount against that as well. Yeah. David, not sure if you have anything there.
Yeah, I was mute. Sorry. Yeah, I think that APIs has opened the door and offering the possibility to be inside of digital ecosystems where in which everything is around the concept of API, because it allows you to offer or to bundle and also unbundle services. So I think that regarding to API monetization, we have to consider that, or that the API value chain can be divided in two main or three main stakeholders, which will be the API provider, which is the entity which is exposing some kind of business asset to do whatever. The value is the business, is the data they are opening up. Then the API consumer, which will be the developer. These are the ones consuming the assets exposed through an API. And then finally, we have the end customer, which probably doesn't know about APIs, but only about the apps the developers develops. So this is very important because our as product owners, our products are APIs, and our customers are developers. This is a mindset change. There is a mindset change needed, because we are used to talk, to interact with end users, but this is not the case. Developers are very different to end users. So that's why the API product ownership is key. And I think that the API product owner has some key characteristics that are particular for the API world. Yeah, for example, it should be leadership is also they are selling APIs. API product ownership is not only selling APIs. You have to sell also all the cycle and all the infrastructure processes that are behind all that. Remember that our consumers are developers, so they could have IT background and know about continuous delivery. So you have to offer them or you have to offer them the tools to be aware about the full API lifecycle because they want to know that kind of things. You have to try to engage them to build a community on top of the API, not only having good documentation or videos or tryouts or whatever, which is also key, but it's better if you try to engage them through other additional features. Another characteristic would be team management. It should be for sure. They have to an API product owner has to be team management skills and also business skills. But probably what I like to highlight is that API product owner, sorry, should be customized to the API world. It's true that general skills are good, but also it has to be a good understanding and knowledge of the API economy. I mean,
Yeah, makes sense.
yeah.
Gibson, you asked about business models, and I didn't give as much information on that. If anybody's interested in really diving deep on this, there's, I think the original person who defined all the business models and APIs was a guy named John Musser, and there's a good YouTube video called 20 API business models in 30 minutes. It's older, but it's still the main ones we talk about today. Nobody's really considering going down to the level of 20 different business models, but in general, they fall into 4 categories. Either free, always free, like Facebook, they're looking to attract eyeballs to the campaign. Either the developer gets paid, the developer pays for access to or for creating the API, or indirect, which you had mentioned, Gibson, when you talked about like eBay, where they're releasing a strong set of APIs to make it easier to work with their platform, which drives more usage, which drives more fees. In our world, in enterprise to enterprise monetization, where we're typically getting involved, it is where they're looking to develop APIs that their customer pays to access. That's the most common use case we're seeing in financial services and healthcare today.
Good.
So, Chips, I was curious maybe to transition to another question for you. You mentioned earlier API productization as as a strategy, and I know that's something that you guys work a lot on. How do you see having a solid API productization strategy benefiting a company that wants to get into monetization? Is that necessary to be successful?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question, very good point there. David was mentioning some points about the general strategy around APIs as a product. I think that just to step back a bit. So, like we was saying, the productization of APIs comes with understanding of what are the services, and this is something that you mentioned there. So, what are the services that I can offer to my partners or that I can offer to my end consumers? Enterprise to enterprise model. So what are the products that I can offer to my whoever your end consumer is? So creating these products, I would say that creating an API product, it's no different from creating a physical product. So you need to understand what are the features that you want to expose in your APIs and what will make them unique, or what are the features that you can charge for, or in an indirect model. So what are the benefits that you're getting from this productization strategy? And then once you define your API strategy roadmap, it's, I would say, simpler to monetize your APIs. So the whole concept of creating APIs as products comes with much more than just exposing your endpoints. David mentioned some of those, like you need to make sure that you have good documentation, that your APIs are used, because I used to say that you can design the best API in the world. if you don't provide the right level of information, of access to your developers, your API strategy, it's not a successful one, by the way. So bundling all of this together, your good design, so creating a product out of your APIs, good documentation, also good level of engagement with your API consumers, the developers, helps you to then have a very solid strategy for APIs. And once you have those products defined, I think it's simpler to identify those use cases that we were discussing. So will you have and direct revenue coming from your APIs? Is it an indirect revenue? So how you're going to monetize your customers? So I think those two are together, very, very related. If you simply expose an API or an endpoint, as some companies say, yo, I already have APIs. I have a set of endpoints here that are exposed. My question then is, what is the value that this set of APIs drive to the business? How can you monetize those APIs, again, directly or indirectly? Can you bundle some of these endpoints and create a real product that you can offer to your partners or to your end consumers? So I think that those two strategies, they walk very hand in hand together. And once you get one very well defined, getting the other, so monetizing your APIs once you have your products defined, becomes much simpler. I think that's my take on this. Of course, associating with all the other points that David was mentioned there, guaranteeing that you have the good API product owner or product manager. And I was discussing about this yesterday as well. The API, let's call the API owner, the API manager, he has to understand what success look like for his API strategy. And if he wants to monetize those APIs, he needs to bring business together, define those APIs together, and understand what are the use cases that will be monetized.
Yeah, but not only understand. I think that not only understand the API by itself, but also the technology behind that.
Absolutely.
Because yeah, because it's not only the business. The API product owner is a mix between the marketing team that will we sell the API, but also the technical team that are developing the API.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Fair point. And I think that one of the important things, I know that we have some other points to discuss here. You mentioned tooling, David. So tools are actually a good support, or for me, they're not just a support. They are different when it comes to exposing your APIs, your API strategy, and monetizing your APIs. Because if you don't have the right tools, basically you need to get all your logs, extract data, create Excel spreadsheets, and then how you tool sets do promote and speed up your overall process. David, I have a question for you. So you mentioned about the API product owner or product manager. When it comes to the whole monetization initiative inside a company, who do you think that from the corporation standpoint should be involved in this kind of initiative? I want to monetize APIs. Who from the company
Yeah,
should be
for
involved?
sure the API product owner.
Okay.
It is the cornerstone about APIs in the company because what we tell it before. He should know what is below the API. I mean the IT, the more technical part, but also he should be in touch with the real world, with the market. So it has to be something in the middle. It's the man in the middle, the IT and a mix with marketing. That's why I said in my previous talk that it should be a good leader. It should have team working team skills, understand the audience, because it would be the one who has to engage or to build all the community developers on top of the APIs to be able to offer value to end users, but also to developers, that kind of thing. I think that for sure the API product owner is the person, is the right one.
Okay. Jason, do you quite often, in the engagements that you're seeing, either RFPs or even directly conversations with customers, do you see someone else involved in these conversations about monetizing APIs? Apart from
We do. We see it starting two ways. So one way is driven by technology, and the other way is driven by the business. And the third way, which is the best way, is they come to you together. The one thing that we always caution when an engagement starts with a technology team driving the idea to launch monetization without a strong business partner, it generally is not very successful. I mean, we definitely applaud the engineering leaders who want to get this started because it's the right idea. But then we quickly start talking to them about the follow-on effects of, well, you're actually launching a business. So who's going to price your product? Who's going to support it when there are problems? Who's going to help you market it and drive customers to it? And quickly you realize that this is no longer just a technology initiative, but it's actually building a brand new business. And
Mhm.
so, but back to your original question, who should lead it? The best practice is it's led by a combination of a chief product officer, business owner, and somebody senior in the engineering team, and those two people can come together to drive the initiative through the organization.
Cool, cool. Very interesting. Yeah, nice. Um, Jason, do have another one for you.
Okay.
So, for every initiative, APIs, or even creation of products, we do have some stumbling blocks, right? So what are the most common ones that normally companies encounter when they're trying to get into the API monetization? So what are the roadblocks there?
Yep. Yeah, good question. We ultimately, HyperCurrent is a software company. We're a SaaS platform, but early in our existence, we realized we needed to add business consulting to what we do because many of the stumbling blocks are not technology when it comes down to it. Back to my earlier question, it's around launching a new business. And so I think a lot of the stumbling blocks we see are on the business side. And so the first one is this assumption that build it and they will come, will work with APIs. And I think that's often driven by really eager technologists that see an opportunity to solve a problem with an API, and there absolutely is opportunity there. But those surrounding functions I mentioned earlier aren't in place to actually drive the right users into your community to start developing and building a community around the APIs. That's probably the first one, is not having a strong plan put together for how you're going to get your initial customer and then your second customer and build from there. And one of the suggestions we often start with that is very successful for a lot of the companies we work with is your first project to build your monetized API should be done together with a partner who you already know wants that service. And it's remarkable how often we will ask our customer to go talk to your customer success team, talk to your sales team, and ask them for a list of customers who have asked for access to your service via APIs in the past 6 months. And usually there are 5 or 6 customers or partners who have asked. And once you go seek that information out, the next step is to go ask those partners, if we were to develop a service together, would you pay for it? And so instead of the build it and they will come idea, you build it for a partner and they help you determine the price and what the value is of that opportunity. And you build it with a friendly audience that, as you stumble and you figure things out for the first time, you've got a motivated partner who helps gets you through that. And then you can repeat success with other customers that you haven't yet found. So that's probably our best advice, is to look for a partner, a customer you already have who wants your service, as opposed to go to the market cold. The second stumbling block I touched on a bit, so just briefly, is having the right team assembled to drive the project, and we talked about that earlier. And then the big topic is overcomplicating the initial loss, or the initial launch. Any good product management person, and that's my background, is you will know that building an MVP is the right strategy generally when you're launching a new product. But somehow when we talk about launching APIs in big companies, the rest of the big company can come in and complicate what you're trying to do to a level where it's very hard to actually get out the door. And so you want to make sure that when you're picking your first product, you pick something with a minimum number of compliance hurdles, because the security team can block you from launching out the door. You want to have a minimal support process defined where the product team that's launching the product can actually do support, so you don't need to engage your entire support organization in your first product release. And pretty much, in every business function that you need support from, you need to define a very thin layer of support that you need, so that you don't have blockers coming at you from every part of your organization when you're trying to do something brand new. And in almost every case, the customers we're working with who are monetizing APIs are doing it for the first time in their organization, and so there's potentially a lot of resistance to doing something that's never been done before, especially in big companies that aren't as fast moving as some of the newer startups. And guys, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, actually, one of the things that you mentioned there, it's the overcomplication, which quite often we see as well. So being an API specialist, helping customers with their API
Yep.
strategy, helping them to first understand what kind of APIs they want to expose. We always advise them, okay, let's build something small. Let's get rid of the
Yep.
complexities, just like you mentioned. Very, very, very interesting. So that applies not only for the overall monetization, which I would say is the next step once a company is starting their API journey, but with the API journey itself, right? So find a few use cases that are simple enough for you to test waters, understand if that's the direction you have to take, and then you can keep adding on top of it. So you manage to, and another point that you mentioned there about finding a partner. I think
Yep.
that's crucial. You find someone that needs what you have to offer. Helping with the validation process, it's much simpler, right? Because they will provide you with the feedback that you need, and it's a genuine feedback. It's not like, oh yeah, it's working.
Yep.
It's not, it's not. Can you connect to my past? Yes, I can. The guy did nothing for the past 4 weeks or so. So finding those real partners that can really provide you with feedback that you need, I think, and not overcomplicating. I think those two are, I say, the killers.
Yep.
Yeah, in fact, it's better to involve them at the very beginning of the life cycle stage, in the definition, yeah, and the design. Yeah, better than in later stages.
Yeah, agreed.
Makes sense. So David, I'm curious, I talked a lot about the business side of launching a new product. What have you seen are the main differences from the engineering side when you're going to go out and monetize APIs versus just doing an API that maybe isn't monetized or used internally?
Yeah, I think that I would suggest two. API governance, and also the API lifecycle. API governance means that how are not it's about not having API, but what are you going to do? How are you going to manage your APIs? Which are the processes? Which are the responsibilities? The role? What happens when since the inception of the project, when someone thinks, hey, I want to expose this kind of data, to the point that that business artist is in production. And also what happens with versioning, for example. So and the life cycle, or managing the API life cycle, means, okay, the API development has a reduced set of steps. Definition, testing. I'm not going to enter in detail with this. This could be another topic for another session. But okay, it's how I made the transition from one step or from one stage to another. This is key in the API world. I mean, I think it's key almost for every software development, but particularly because of the nature of APIs in this world. Why? Because you are part of a digital ecosystem. So the quality of your APIs will also affect to other products built on top of your APIs.
Yeah, and if I could add on that, I guess that there's not really a difference, I could say, when you're exposing your APIs to the external world and when you are monetizing them. I think that the most important thing is that whenever you are designing your API, that in fact what you do, you prepare those APIs to always be exposed and always be monetized. Because then regardless of your end goals with that API, you will always be ready to either monetize them, and you all will also benefit from all the governance aspects that David was mentioning there. And again, I was talking about this, having a discussion around how good an API has to be exposed to the external world. Actually, every API should be ready to be exposed externally, which then makes it ready to be monetized as well if you find a use case for that. So I think it's quite interesting. Um, I think we have a question here or a comment um, from Emily Teresa. I use Sensedia's Life Insurance Sales API endpoint 1.5 years ago inside my company to accelerate sales. I'm very grateful. Oh, thank you so much. That was just a comment. I thought it was a question. Thank you. Thank you. Happy to hear that. Guys, I know that we are nearly reaching the end. Some final comments, remarks before we wrap up.
Yeah, I think since we just have a couple minutes left, if anybody wants to sneak in a question or a comment, then now's the time to do it. I would just add one thing, Gibson, to the last question
Sure.
that you and David answered, is that I agree with what you both said. Technically, it is a similar process for monetized APIs versus not, but I think you have to go into it with the mindset that the bar is higher on every aspect of professionalism with your API when you're asking customers to pay money for it. So things like looking at latency in your API calls, latency is more unacceptable when someone's paying you for access. And the security bar is going to be that much higher. You're going to end up being in security reviews with customers because they're not getting it for free, they're paying for it. And so you're going to have to push more. The bar is going to go higher there. Telemetry and metrics are more important because you need to know before your customers do when things aren't working. And so it is a higher bar technically, but if you're following the right API strategy, you've probably started on all those roads. You just need to raise your game a little bit as you charge
Yeah,
for them.
yeah, that's actually a very good point. Really good point in terms of quality of the APIs that you're exposing. Again, prepare your APIs as they're going always to be exposed to external partner. But then when you're monetizing them, yeah, security. If you have any compliance, if it's an API that's touching compliance, like your PCI, credit card payments, so make sure that those aspects are very well covered. Otherwise, yeah, your API strategy, monetization strategy is not really going to launch. Yeah. So I made several notes here.
Okay.
Really good session. Really good session. Yeah. So just to wrap up here, Jason, you mentioned that rapidly, even more companies are increasing the number of requests to monetize APIs. You even shared the number here, right? Back in the days, you would have like a third of the RFPs requesting for monetization, and now pretty much most of them are doing that, are coming up with that requirement. Huge focus from health and financial sectors as well. And you mentioned about drivers. I liked what you said about the disruption, disrupting competition, and could either be the disruptor or the one who's being disrupted, right? So very interesting. And then we touched a bit about the value chain that David was explaining there. So APIs, providers, API consumers, which are the developers that we need to take care of them. We had a session about that. And also the end consumers that quite often we don't see, but they're very important as well. And then we spoke about the role of the API product manager or product owner that, together with the whole concept of API productization, it's a very important role. And Jason, you also mentioned that some of these initiatives, driven by technology only, they may not be as successful as they could be. But on the other hand, whenever you bring, like a product owner or a CPO, for example, those types of initiatives are more successful. You also mentioned about the main categories to monetize APIs, and please do share the video that you mentioned, the YouTube video, the
Yep.
20 API monetization in 30 minutes. That's quite handful. And then we touched about the stumbling blocks, and we already had a quick chat about this discussion, but the lack of strong plan, so know exactly what you're trying to do with your API monetization strategy, the right team as well, so having the right people, the right skill sets, and then do not overcomplicate when you are monetizing your APIs. Run an MVP, run away from compliance, security issues, so get something simple and find a partner that will support you. Last but not least, we discussed about the difference between exposing an API that is going to be monetized from an engineering point of view. And like we were just chatting, there's not really a big difference, but we have to make sure that if you're charging for API access, you need to guarantee your latency, security, all of these aspects that are the non-functional requirements that if you're not monetizing your APIs, you will guarantee them, but the bar goes really high. Yeah, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. Jason, thank you very much. Really a pleasure having you here. Hope that we can have more of these sessions with you as well, discussing even more, perhaps deeper about the monetization of APIs. David, thank you very much for having this session again. Jason, any final remarks on your side there?
I just want to thank you guys for inviting me. It was a great conversation, and please let us know if we can help in the future.
Perfect. Thank you all very much. So stay tuned in our LinkedIn webpage for more jam sessions and to get access to the previous ones as well. Thank you very much. Wish you all a great day. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.